Well, hello everybody. Here we are with another Kourie Richards clip. I was watching this because I was bored. And we know when she had her trial how many different faces she would pull, especially if it was true or untrue. She was like, her eyes would pop out of her head. And if she was like nervous or I don't know what you call it, sort of like feeling guilty, her gills here would like puff out a little bit. I thought that was really amusing. But you won't believe this. I just showed this video, right? And I had quite a bit to say. And then I went to click end recording, and it didn't record. So I was so stupid. So here's my second attempt at it. Like I said, I'm not going to do a lot of chit chat, but you have a look at the expression she makes, and when she giggles, no one else in the room is giggling. So just shows how unintelligent she is. This isn't a laughing matter. This trial is real. It's serious, and she got found guilty. So I will play the whole thing all over again. Bear with me.
Good morning, Ms. Amon.
Good morning.
So Ms. Chervenak asked you how the model was developed, and you told us about cat research, but I didn't hear an answer as to how the model was actually developed.
Sure. So in the 80s or 90s, a number of studies were conducted on attacks against public figures, political figures, judges, other people. And in those studies, it became quite clear that the offenders were typically engaging in a sequential and recognizable cascade of behaviors leading to the violent attack. And so that became the pathway to violence. The data collected from those studies showed that 6 particular discrete stages were happening in virtually every case that was studied back at that time. And so that became the pathway to violence. Does that answer your question?
Even this guy here, in his boots and twos, as I call it, he's like saying, am I hearing this right? Do I understand this? And her smug face, I really could slap her one. I really wish. And I hope she gets slapped when she's in prison too. But yeah, no one else seems to laugh. Only her. And Kathy there, she's making notes of something. Excuse me. She's not paying no interest at all. So carry on.
A little bit. So, but the pathway to violence talks about, strike that. Let me read first. So you used the analogy of a cardiologist. You said this isn't predictive, it's preventive.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So this only applies after an event has happened?
No, not at all. That's how we have studied it. How we use it is in advance. So let's say, for example, you are a school principal and a child in your school has risen to your attention as raising concerns for violence for whatever reason. Maybe he's got a hit list, maybe he's stalking his girlfriend. So I would look at that if I were consulting with you, and I would ask for everything you know about the situation and the child. And I would look for primarily that we know to be well correlated with subsequent violence, including the pathway. And if I saw evidence of any of those, then I would advocate for active management of the case to try to reduce the violence risk. The general rule is that once you observe one or more of the proximal warning behaviors, then some sort of active management is necessary to prevent violence. So we're managing behaviors of concern in the present to prevent violence in the future. We don't know that the child is ever going to be violent, but we're not waiting around to find out. We're going to take active steps to try to prevent and manage.
And you have no idea if absent those active steps, would that child ever have committed violence, true?
No idea is a bit strong, but do we know? No, we don't know. That's correct. Someone can certainly ride the pathway all the way up to one of the upper steps and then never do a thing. That's entirely possible.
All right. So you talked about that it has been subject to many studies. Could you tell me what studies this has been subject to?
Sure. Yeah, I was a little bit surprised to hear Dr. Fox say that it has been subject to no studies. The most recent study that was specifically on the pathway and only pathway came out in 2024 in the Journal of Threat Assessment and Management. And they had a very high, actually high inter-rater reliability score in that study. I would say the majority of studies in the last decade are more on proximal warning behaviors is the label that you would have to search by rather than pathway. They're on, I mean, almost more than I can count. Public figures, mass attackers, intimate partner homicide offenders, other sorts of family offenders like paternal filicide, maternal filicide, that kind of thing. Workplace, classroom. I mean, the journals are really littered with studies looking at proximal warning behaviors.
Are there any peer review studies that you can point to that adopt this?
All peer reviewed studies, all of them.
What are they?
Well, I supplied a list to Ms. Chevernak when they first contacted me, but the most recent one that I mentioned in 2024 is called "Are All Pathway Behaviors Observable? A Quantitative Analysis of the Pathway to Intended Violence Model." And that came out in the Journal of Threat Assessment and Management.
So the same one you just told me about?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so it's not a predictive model, it's a preventive model.
Right.
It's not capable, you can't generate any numerical score, correct?
No.
Using this. And it's not designed to determine if a specific individual is going to commit violence, correct?
No, I agree with Dr. Fox's description that it's a descriptive model. It describes behaviors that have been observed in studies. I would say its operational use is not in prediction, but in prevention, which I think is really a key difference in terms of how we use it in the field.
So it could be useful if someone came to the FBI and said they're thinking about a mass shooting.
I'm not sure I take your meaning.
Well, if it's not useful in predicting violence, and it's useful, as you said in your cardiology example, if someone comes in and says, hey, I'm having these symptoms, then, you can help prevent it. So how is this at all useful in the real world? Because people don't come into the FBI and say, I'm having these symptoms. And you can say, well, you are on the pathway to violence. Let me help you. That doesn't happen, correct?
Yeah, that's never happened as far as I know. But how it is used is if I'm looking at a case where someone has already risen to the attention of whoever is observing as someone being of concern for violence, maybe they've been making threats, maybe they've been menacing people, maybe they have a hit list, whatever, that can look a million different ways. Then I look at the entirety of the case, as many facts as can be gathered, and then I begin looking for signs of proximal warning behaviors to decide if we're in, sort of an imminent countdown potentially to an act of violence. And that's where the pathway to violence becomes quite useful. If I observe someone on the pathway, particularly in late stage pathway markers, then I might develop, depending on the context, I'd have a lot of questions, but I might become very concerned that we're close to a potential act of violence.
Has this ever actually happened in the real world, where you have stopped violence based on something that was brought to your attention?
Well,
how can you say that has happened?
We can't. That's what I mean by there's no prediction. I can't. So when we see pathway behaviors or other proximal warning behaviors, we intervene. That's our job, is to intervene. So once we've intervened and there's no violence, how can we ever say that there would have been violence but for intervention? You can't. You can't prove what never happened.
All right. It's fair to say that two evaluators could look at an individual and reach completely different conclusions, whether someone's on the pathway to violence or not, right?
Not well evaluators.
So your testimony is that people always come to the same conclusion if they're trained in this?
No.
Okay. So people can come to different conclusions, even if they're both well-trained people?
I think if they're well-trained, they should not come to different conclusions on something as fundamental as the pathway. You can come to different conclusions about how close someone is to violence.
But it's subjective, right? It's not based on scientific data.
Well, it is based on scientific data. All those studies that I referenced in the 80s and 90s that helped Brian Foscule, Randy Borum, and Robert Fine arrive at the pathway to violence. That's data.
The journal we talked about that it was published in.
No, that's a different journal.
Right, so I'll end that now because they've put cards up so you can't see her face anymore. So you see what I mean? You know, it's ridiculous. And that, I mean, the topic wasn't particularly interesting, I must admit, but it was just Kourie's expressions and that. So, right, I don't know if I'll get time to do another one now because I'm off out shooting a bit later tonight in a weekly match. Maybe what make me shoot better is if I imagine each target that I got to shoot at is her face. I might try that, and I will let you know if I shoot any better by imagining it as her face. Oh, I'm so mean, and I'm so mean. I'm sure there's songs saying, "Oh, I'm so mean." No, I'm not going to sing. I won't ruin it. Anyway, till the next one. See ya.